Welcome to Comedy Centric, your place for all things comedy. Every week, we'll discuss the legends and the people who built the business, the performers, writers, behind the scenes, and stories that you have never heard. So relax, take a load off, and join us for this episode of Comedy Centric. Now, the host of your show, nationally headlining comedian, a woman with a wicked sense of humor and a killer Jersey accent, Julia Scotti.
Well, here we are, show number 3. Who'd ever thought we'd get this far? I'm Julia Scotti, and that voice you hear with the little red hat on is my buddy, the pride of Boston, Massachusetts. No? Okay. Pittsburgh. Okay. 2 tickets from Pittsburgh is an old joke, but we'll get into that later. Kathy Caldwell. Hi.
Hi, honey.
How are you?
I'm good, hon. I'm good. Hot. I'm having a hot flash.
Having a hot flash. Tropical hot flash.
I know.
So,
Crazy.
Did you see? I called you earlier today to talk to you about the National Comedy Center.
Yes.
It's got. We gotta have them on. It's this
Okay.
whole building up in Rochester, New York, of all places, devoted to to everything comedy. And they just got in an exhibition from Betty White from her type. Yeah. So I think we're gonna try and get on. I gotta get up there. I've been I had the Baseball Hall of Fame, and now this place I want to go.
Well,
So maybe we can go up one weekend. You and
okay.
I.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
So Betty White is in there now?
Well, this is like an exhibit of her stuff. They've got stuff from the Golden Girls, from Mary Tyler Moore, from all of that. It looks really interesting.
All right.
And speaking of really interesting, how's that for a segue?
Look at you.
I know I'm getting good at this, right?
You're a pro.
I know that's the Tom's River School of Broadcasting for you. That'll do it every time.
TRB.
Yeah. This guest today is I hate that you can't even call her a guest.
No, she's family.
Well, she's family to us, but not to the American public.
But she might be, given her body of work.
Her body of work is known to the public.
Exactly.
For all I know, her body might be known to the public too, but I don't know her that well. But if you're a fan of the movie, Crossing Delancey, there's a hint. Or if you study screenwriting at a well-known university in New York, you would know this woman. And we're happy to have her on because she's become family, our kind of family. And please, if you're at home, put your hands together. I can't hear you. Okay. And clap for Susan Sandler. Bring her on. Susan Sandler. There she is. Hi, Susan Sandler.
Hey, girls.
How are you?
Pickle Lady.
I'm so happy to be so centric and comedy with you.
Wow. How come? Well, your apartment looks so much bigger in this shot. I mean, your apartment's big to begin with, but now it almost looks like you're green screening it from here.
Julia, she's a director and a producer, and she knows how to frame stuff.
I know, but she wasn't always a director and a producer. She was once a young.
No, I think she was.
No.
Right out the legend grows and grows.
No. She was once a country girl from the wilds of Virginia, and she has no Southern accent at all. But how does a girl from Newport News?
Actually, I grew up in Newport News, but I was born on the Lower East Side.
Oh man, now you just ruined my whole intro.
Delancey is where it all began. Yeah.
You were born there?
I was born at Beth Israel. Yeah, Lower East Side.
I'll be damned.
And then my family pulled us down to Virginia, and we had a very gentle Southern upbringing, doing theater and all that cool stuff, but spending my summers on the Lower East Side with my bubby, who was the inspiration for Crossing Delancey. So my world of New York was established by all things Lower East Side. I thought New York ended at 14th Street. That was.
But you would summer with her, right?
I would summer with my bubby, yes, on the benches. Yep.
Well, let's talk about you growing up in Virginia. We're going to go through the timeline of your life. So,
gosh, this is like What is the show?
This is your life.
This is your life. Wow, who's going to
Like-
come out of the closet here? I
Like
can't
Sid
wait.
Caesar, Uncle Goopy's gonna come out and cling to your leg.
Well, I think it's important to know the background to because everybody comes from a different place, and understanding what drives you and what what your reference points were for certain project is really fascinating.
Well, that in terms of Crossing Delancey, that is very much highly autobiographical. I mean, it's very much about a world that I visited through my bubby. It's very much about the longing that I was feeling when I moved to New York, and I was not exactly working in a bookstore, but hanging out in a bookstore and sort of literary scenes, and just longing for love. There was a pickle man. There was, in fact, a butcher who worked Julia, this is going to be close to your roots.
Wait a minute, you had an affair with my father?
No, my bubby believed very, very passionately that you marry a butcher, you're going to have meat on the table.
Well, my mother would disagree with you, but okay.
So there was all of that stuff, very biographically. The people in her world were the people I met, and there was a matchmaker. There was a real matchmaker who worked the benches, and of course, I didn't ever put my head in the ring with that, but I got to know her, and I got to see how she operated, and she was always kind of circling me, and so all of those pieces were there. And then it all kind of fused into the fantasy story that I developed first as a play.
All right, but you would come. I'm trying to picture. You started coming up here for summers when you were how old?
But first with my mom, schlepping on a Greyhound bus for 15 hours from Newport News, and then just being deposited with my bubby for weeks at a time.
10, 12 when you started coming up?
Yeah. And then going to theater too, eventually.
Was it romantic at that time? Like, did you embrace it and go, this is something that I really
It was very much about a world that I felt was exotic, because it was very different from where I was in Virginia, but it was old world. It was my bubby's world. It was people speaking in Yiddish, and a kind of, all the Hasidic Jews that were in the community there. All of that stuff was sort of part of what I observed. But it was very much, the stuff that happens between a grandchild and a grandparent is very pure, right? They're the ones they really want you to be happy. They don't care about career. They don't care about anything but your pure happiness. So that relationship with my mother's mother, my bubby, was very much essential in my life.
Well, I remember spending summers with my grandfather, and I remember going when I went back home in September for school. I left all that behind. Like, my summers were a whole different world. When you went back home to Newport News, was your heart still in New York, or were you able to shift? And at what point did you start to become interested in being a writer?
In Newport News, I was very involved in the theater. I started working professionally in summer stock at quite an early age, in community theater. And out of that, I was also writing. I was writing poetry. And in fact, in high school, I was the editor of a literary magazine and won a prize from Archibald MacLeish, who's kind of an incredible poet.
Yeah, I know.
And the poem that I won for was called Ode to the Pickle Lady. And it was
still have it?
Yeah,
it?
I can.
Yeah, let's hear. I want to hear it.
Okay. It is, oh, Madam of the Dills, Lady of the Kosher Sours and Sweets, your cry echoes through the streets of Essex and Broome, where it is caught on the cuffs of a child of 10, barely visible through the layers of well-earned dirt, head bent back, craning to see the face of his mom. He screams up to the 5th floor window of the tenement apartment. Hey, Ma, throw down a nickel for a pickle. Hey, Ma. Oh, Madam of the Dills, Lady of the Kosher Sours and Sweets, around your stall gather the elite of the block. Seated on barrels, they chew over recently thought thoughts, recently attended funerals and brisses, and recently dreamt dreams, yet unfulfilled.
And you were how old when you wrote that?
I think I was a junior in high school.
Whoa.
So that was the kernel of the idea for Crossing Delancey. And all that time, it just, you know how that is, Julia, with ideas, and with you, Kathy, you know, the ideas sit there and then they grow in the subconscious. And that's where the play began. It began with that idea.
Was that the first thing you ever wrote, or first play you wrote, or whether?
No, I was writing in high school. I was writing short stories. I was writing plays. I was writing sketch comedy. I was doing that.
Really?
Yeah. All that good stuff.
Give me an example of what some of your sketches were.
One of them was about Brotherhood Week, you know, which was a kind of thing you had to do in high school. And it was Brotherhood Week, time to tell your brother he's the man of the week. You know, so it was sort of
Wait, you had to actually sing that?
Yeah. So it was one of those, you know, sketches that played to the rules that we had. My school was integrated in Newport News, Virginia, with one Black student, handpicked, who was the son of the town's most prestigious doctor. So, I mean, the Brotherhood Week thing was, you know, not pure. Yeah.
White
people, boy.
They crazy, right?
Yeah.
So, Susan, you talked about, well, I want to get back to that, but so you did this movie, and how long you wrote it, and then how long before it really hit the shelves? Like how long did it take?
The progression of the film is it began. I wrote it first as a play, and I developed it at Ensemble Studio Theater, and did readings there, and then it was produced off Broadway with a wonderful cast that include Melanie Mayron and Shirley Stoller played Bubby, and forgetting her name, who played the matchmaker. She was incredible. She was in Honeymoon Killers. Shirley Stoller. Wow. And it was 5-character play. It was, you know, gorgeously reviewed. A lot of people came to see it and were interested in it. And it was picked up by a director named Joan Wicklund Silver, and she and I worked together on developing it as a film. And I wrote the screenplay, and then I helped to bring the cast together. I found Rachel Bozic, who played the grandmother. She was at the Yiddish Theater.
She's wonderful. Yeah.
I was taking Yiddish lessons at the Workman's Circle, which is where it's interesting. It's where a lot of immigrants would go to learn English, but now the children of those immigrants go to learn Yiddish. I was taking Yiddish lessons there, and the person who was my teacher was also a theater producer, and in his realm were Rachel Bozic. And then he ended up playing the Moyle, the man who, you know, does the circumcision.
Oh, right, yeah.
That was Moshe Rosenfeld, who was my Yiddish teacher at Workman's Circle. So all of these people came into the film, including characters like I don't know if you remember the scene where we're looking at a cable TV show where there's a performance artist doing the show of hands. She was a friend of mine who, when I was working a summer job at Lincoln Center doing press for them and doing special events, I did an event called New Year's Eve in Central Park, believe it or not. And it was at Bethesda Fountain with Debbie Harry, Blondie, playing.
Wow.
And we had that performance artist marching everybody all around Bethesda Fountain to this party that was all free with, you know, it was just a very gentle time in New York. That was one of my great summer jobs. And so out of that came, you know, all these pieces of my life that just threw into the pot of the film, including.
I thought it was kind of cool that you had David Hyde Pierce.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Famous, you know, obviously.
Yeah.
And he still had hair, so I mean, you know, you could always tell how old David Hyde Pierce is by the amount of hair he's lost, you know.
And then there was the scene at the bookstore that I'm in. I don't know if you remember seeing that, but there's a reading where I'm on the sofa.
Right.
Oh yeah,
and that was a scene where originally I wrote it for Isaac Bashevis Singer to be the literary celebrity.
Okay.
And I lived near him on 87th Street, which is where my original apartment was, in which we shot in my original apartment lobby, not in the, but my door is open. My actual door is open for Izzy's apartment. So my building was used as a set at the time, which is kind of crazy. The scene where all the pregnant women are walking out of the door, that was, you know, the door of my building. And around the corner was, and still is, a wonderful building where Isaac Singer lived, and a great deli where we shot, very famous, wonderful deli. So, you know, all of these pieces of my actual life were developed into the film because I went location scouting with a location scout. Found all these pieces.
I mean, you have the greatest set in the world in New York City. Becomes a character. Becomes a character.
Absolutely, it's very much a love poem to New York.
Was that bookstore a real bookstore?
No, that bookstore was constructed, and it was actually constructed in New Jersey, across the river.
Is that right? Where?
Yeah, just across the river in
Jersey City,
Hoboken.
or something?
Hoboken.
Mm-hmm. How cool! I didn't know that. That's a little factoid that we didn't have.
Nuggets of.
But the Isaac Singer scene, he was in Switzerland at the time, and I wrote to him asking him. I was given his address to ask him to come and be in the film, playing in this literary salon. He wasn't available, and I kept, thinking about who we could find, authors we could find. Offers were going out to other authors to be in that scene, and finally. We got the wonderful actress. Oh, I'm blanking on her name. Who plays the writer in that scene.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think
of
it.
And I pulled out one of my old poems for her to read. So that was, how that all evolved, that beat. And then I wrote myself into it because why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Sure. Yeah.
So, Susan, you were talking about, and I guess we'll get into, but there was a group of people that had it was like what was it called? And I guess this goes to, I mean, if we move on to oh my god, I'm so stupid, with Ben Stiller and or Jerry Stiller and Helen
Stiller and Mira.
Oh, you're talking about the Yiddish
the Burial
Theater.
Society.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, did any of that influence you? Like, because you were talking about a society of actors that were supportive of each other and actually helped each other, with finances and that type of thing.
You're speaking of the Yiddish Actors Union.
Yeah. Right.
I didn't,
still in.
No, sadly, I don't think it is. What you're talking about, the play, The Burial Society, that was recorded by the amazing team of Stiller and Mira for NPR for a wonderful program called Playing on Air that brings short plays to the radio. And I was just so honored to have them. That play is part of an evening of short plays that I wrote called Under the Bed. And there are 5 short plays together in that. And the people who have performed it include some pretty amazing actors. So it's been fun to have sections of it brought to life for the radio. But that particular play was inspired by a memorial service that I went to. And this is the first time I'm saying it out loud.
I was wondering.
for the star of Crossing Delancey. I went to her memorial service. And there were actors.
The Bubby character?
Yeah. And there were actors from the Yiddish theater there that were the inspiration for.
Oh, that's an important point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering, like, is this based on some type of real life or something you've seen?
Like everything good, it comes from truth, right, Julia?
When listening to it again today, I was thinking, boy, some things never change. If you got a bunch of comedians together at a funeral, it would and a wake, and then they have to give eulogies. It wouldn't be it would be a show. It'd be like
that's right.
He did too much time. Is she? Well, there's no women on this wake. I mean, come on,
Right, and that was the vibe, and the whole, the generation of it. I did work when I was in college. I went to Boston University in the theater program. I did a paper on Yiddish theater, and I visited this wonderful world. This underground. It was like the Algonquin for Yiddish actors. It was this very cool little clubhouse, and very theatrical people, very, very full of themselves and very full of great stories. And that's the world that I was looking at. My favorite year the other day, which is one of my most beautiful films. And you see in those characters the size of that comedy is very much
Mhm.
Yiddish, based on the Yiddish theater. Everything that Sid Caesar brought to it. So I sent you guys a clip of the Burial Society. Do you want to share it with your audience?
Yeah, why don't Jimmy? You got it racked up. I'm assuming he's sending me telepathic messages that it is.
Racket.
So let's take a second and listen to the clip.
Tops 5 minutes. They pull them off, they go over 5.
That'll be the day. You got Yiddish actors in front of a live audience. It's not a memorial service. It's a matinee. Come on, do me.
All right.
That's good. That's good. Now she'll get her star in front of the 2nd Avenue Deli.
Of course. What else?
For what? A hanger-on. All her life she's playing minor characters.
And we're back. That was great.
Thank you.
I mean, what characters?
And what an incredible joy to have been able to work with
How
Ann
did you
Mira and
nab
Jerry
them?
Stiller. This was the producer of this show who did that.
Okay.
And,
What was the question? I didn't hear what you said, Kath. How did she what?
how were they cast in it? I mean, I knew them on Nantucket. They were very, very much royalty on Nantucket and very active in the whole world of the Nantucket Film Festival. So I got to meet them there. But the casting happened through Claudia Catania, who is the producer of Playing on Air, which everybody should listen to. It's a great show.
That when I listened to it this morning, it put me to mind of Mel Brooks's To Be or Not to Be, where they're the
that's high praise.
Well, the redo. There was a redo of the Jack Benny movie where they played the Polish stars.
Yeah.
And
I love the original too. I mean,
they're both class. Have you ever seen that, Kat?
I have not. No.
Oh,
You should, yeah.
And that's a very good lineage, Julia.
Or you get to see Anne Bancroft singing in Polish, "Sweet Georgia," which it's just the choicest song is just perfect. But that's what it put me to mind.
Jack Benny's every take in that is also
everything. Jack Benny is everything. But that brings us to comedy and the Yiddish theater and the arrival of vaudeville in this country. And I know even there was sort of an Italian theater too with comedy, that the Italians had their own version of vaudeville. It seems like every oppressed group that comes to this country, but they bring their culture with them, and that's one of the things that unites them. And the Jewish comedians early on, I mean, they found the home they developed up in the mountains, correct? And then they brought it, they brought
Catskills,
it. Yeah, but the theater, what it evolved into, the humor. We had Bill Persky on last week, and he even was, he's just like my hero.
I know.
And he was talking.
Susan is your hero.
All right, he's my male hero. Okay,
there you go.
Anyway, he's of all the people that I know in comedy with a penis, he's
your man.
Yeah, but he talked about the Jewish comedians of his era too, and how influential they were. He talked about. I mean, talk about Ernie Kovacs, just genius.
Yeah. So I think we're burying the lead here. I think the one thing we have not addressed is the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Which Miss Susan Sandler.
The love of my life right here, Julia Scotti.
Julia Scotti, Funny That Way. A critically acclaimed documentary that Susan was all about you, Susan. I mean,
well, it's all about falling in love with Julia Scotti is what it's all about. So
blood, sweat, and tears. You started so
literally.
Susan produced, directed, did everything for a documentary called Julia Scotti, Funny That Way, and Susan, I'll let you tell the story of how that.
I'm just going to sit back and
okay.
Let's talk about her, Susan.
The feature documentary, Julia Scotti, Funny That Way, a portrait of the amazing Miss Julia Scotti, which is distributed by 1091 Pictures in the U.S. and Canada, and educationally by Good Docs. And soon. I can't announce it just yet, but we're on the cusp of announcing our distribution for the UK, and I'm very excited about that. So
isn't that wonderful?
Yes,
it's wonderful.
Yes. I think your UK audience is just going to be exploding over that, Julia. I just know that. So this is a film that was a brand new adventure for me. The idea of moving from narrative storytelling, where essentially I'm looking at the world that I observe and the world that I fantasize and the writing that I do from that, to materials that are from real life. And it all began with meeting Julia on Nantucket. She came to do an evening of comedy with our dear friend Jane Condon, who we just love, talented, and
we do.
Just a beautiful human being inside and out. And Jane does this great thing of bringing very talented people to the island of Nantucket every summer, does her show, and I go with great joy to those shows and meet her, the people she discovers and introduces us to. And this particular night, 7 years ago now, Julia, right?
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She brought
so much younger then.
The headlining genius of Julia Scotti to the Dreamland Theater on Nantucket. And I just went, whoa, I was just knocked out. I can remember absolutely, I was thinking about it this morning, Julia, I can remember sections of that set. I can see it. I can see you doing your crowd work with the two cute guys in the front row. I can see
by the way, showed up in Palm Springs when I was
out
there recently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. Yeah, it lasts.
Still cute too, by the way.
Okay. So, we hung out after the show, as I love to do with Jane and her crew. And there was just this, when good things happen in life, you connect with people, where there's a feeling that this is somebody I can feel the talent radiating from her. I can feel something that I want to be a part of here. I did not know what it was. I just knew I want to do something with this person. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I want to do something with this person. And so we started talking. And what I had done with Jane Condon first was to help her produce a one-person show. And I did that, kind of almost like a therapist, dramaturgically, drawing her out, asking her questions about her biography, helping her think about the pieces that would work structurally in storytelling as a one-person show, which is, for comedians, very much about the roots of where they find their funny, and where they find their funny is often where they find the tragedy in their lives too. So, the beauty of her story, of Jane's story, had to do with her brother and her brother's, very sad life, and the way she brought comedy to him as a healing element in his life, and all those pieces. So I helped her think about structuring that, and then I brought her together with a director, and then I gave her a theater that I belonged to, and I sponsored that workshop there. So she calls me her fairy godmother for that. So at some part of my brain thought, well, maybe there's a one-person show inside of the Julia Scotti story. I knew nothing about Julia's story. I saw a comedian who knocked me out. So we started talking, and, it was like, little chit chats into the night. And we got together for coffee and talked more and more. I knew, because she was a comedian, there was going to be archival material. I knew there was going to be stuff. It might not be beautifully shot, but I knew there was footage that would be part of it. And all of those elements began to just make themselves really clear to me, that this woman held the material of a great documentary. I was not a documentary filmmaker. I had never approached the idea of working from real life. I worked from my own life. I wrote from stories that I had absorbed and then shaped into narrative, but I had never produced, directed, in any way structured documentary. But I knew this wanted to be a film. So my first steps in that direction were to pitch it to other people, to people in the documentary world that I thought, should make this movie. And I talked to a few people who had really great credentials. I haven't told you some of this, Julia, but someday I'll list the names for you.
Steven Spielberg.
And at one point in time, it just turned, and I thought, wait a minute. I believe in this project so passionately. I love this woman more and more. I'm seeing more and more the bones of what this story can be. I know how to do stuff. I know how to tell stories, and I'm going to do this. I didn't have funding. I didn't have a producer. I didn't have any structure around me. I just knew, I believed that Julia's story was really interesting, valuable, and moving. And it was an adventure that I wanted to go on, and I was hoping she would let me. And that was where we began.
But for my part, and I don't think I ever told you this, Susan, but as comics, we get promised so much bullshit in our careers. I mean, everybody's going to make you a star and going to put you in the TV. And so when you came to me and said, well, have you thought about a documentary? I said, not really. And you said, would you let me do it? I said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And then one day you show up with a film crew. I'm like, oh, she means it. Oh.
And you had the sublime patience and trust to allow me to enter your life in the most intimate way with a camera, sharing incredible amounts of your history in documents that you shared, in material that all kinds of materials, from journals to letters to stuff that you wrote to family footage, all kinds of cool stuff.
To being in the hospital.
Yeah. All of that, trusting me in this journey, and out of this, huge, wonderful soup of Julia Scotti, to figure out the structure of the story, to figure out how to tell the story. I remember, and I think it was one of our very first shoots, I had pulled sections of your book, your manuscript out, and I knew that it felt like it wanted to be a narrative thread. It felt like it wanted to be potentially a way of shaping the story. You trusted me, and you read that day. I think that was day one of our shoot. That material.
I think so. The word trust is I don't want to gloss over that, because Kathy knows me, and she knows how few people I trust. And she's, go ahead, Kath.
No, and Susan, I don't know if I've ever told you this. You're talking about the film crew. You had a sound person there, mm-hmm. and Julia was sitting in the chair reading.
Right.
Yeah. The sound guy, again, I don't know if you knew this. The sound guy, he was an older gentleman.
Chat, yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And he was sitting at Julia's kitchen table.
Yeah.
And he had his little headset on.
Yep.
And Julia was reading what she had written
mm-hmm.
in the intro. And I looked over at him, and he was crying.
Mm.
And I thought, whoa. And I said, are you okay? He goes, yeah, it's just so moving.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, if this guy who's doing sound, who he's working right now,
mm-hmm.
Is crying, then there's really something here.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, I'm like, okay, this is going to be something else. And to follow that up, I also don't know that after Julia appeared on America's Got Talent, and with the movie, your documentary, how many calls and emails and just so many people from across the country and across the world reached out to say thank you. And for you to be able to highlight her story and who she is, and to really teach people what a wonderful human being Julia really is it's seismic, and the ripple effects are really, really, I think, will last for generations to come.
Well, Kathy, you've been a big part of this process. You are such a modest person, but Julia and I know that you've been an essential part of our team. You were there, helping in so many ways behind the scenes, helping us with every aspect of the shoot, putting together that, making the introductions to PFLAG, helping us organize that. And of course, that whole hospital sequence, my God, that we snuck a camera into the hospital and Julia said, okay.
I was pretty drugged up at the time.
She didn't have a choice.
You have been, and of course, everything that you have done for Miss Julia Scotti, in the way of believing in her and opening doors so that the world could meet her, including America's Got Talent, that you said, yes, girl, do that. I think you're a big part of the story. You're a huge part of the story too. So, it's a good club. This is the girls' club right here.
Yeah. And I'm going to just say one thing. Julia's also been so important to my life and has helped me, and just, it's not a one-way street. So yeah. I'm going to tear up, and I hate to do that. So carry on.
Suffice to say, the feeling is mutual, Kathleen and Susan. Susan, after the movie was finished, I confessed to being nervous. There were periods during the filming of that where I'm like, what the hell did I do? And she's, what did I do? And I just kept saying, all right, I trust that she won't harm me in any way. And it's still an issue with me about letting people into my life. But when it was finished, I got to look at I got to look at my own life. It's a wonderful life. It's like you're Clarence the Angel, and you showed me what life was, what my life was like. And I gained a lot of knowledge about myself from watching it. One of the things I learned was that I was a terrible homophobe. I was so embarrassed and ashamed of myself.
Oh, we know there's so many layers there, right?
Oh man,
But what a great piece of film, like just capturing that on film, Susan, was genius when Julia's sitting in the living room and she's watching her old self talk about transgender people and
the part of the process. And I know this show is looking at process in many, many ways. The process for me as a writer, as a filmmaker, and the subject being Julia Scotti, I saturated myself in all things Julia. And that meant when Julia gave me all of these tapes, all of these, everything was on, VHS, all the material that she had in the back of her closet, restoring some of that because it wasn't, some of it wasn't in good shape. And then looking at all of it and then finding the material in it that felt like it was going to be important, opening doors, provocative, everything. And that certainly was a provocative clip, and I knew that it was going to be interesting. And I put together this section that, and it happened to be a day when Julia's son Dan was visiting, and she was able to share some of her history with him. So that was a shocking moment for you, Julia, to see that material, but it was also completely understandable in the context of the story that you were telling Dan that day. And
well, I've spoken to other trans folks since who have asked me about that, and gay folks who came out later in life, and that story repeats itself in their lives too, in some form. I was going, as I said to Dan, I was going through that period where I wasn't sure what I was. I had no idea what I was. And people, when when you come from a generation like ours, where you're taught to repress everything is a sin if you're Catholic, you spend your whole life pushing away those cobwebs to finally, see clearly. And that, looking back at that, I realize how much wiser my son is than I am, because I see his attitudes. He's caught me on a couple of things, and he's kind of in his own way told me to, wise up and not be an asshole. So.
Well, I think the understanding that you have for your own evolution and the understanding that he has for his own growth. I mean, it's very much a part of the storytelling in the film.
So I have a question for you. If you were writing a sequel to Crossing Delancey,
Oh, okay.
let's talk about writing process.
Yeah.
Give me the elevator pitch of what that looks like.
Well, that's interesting because people have wanted to hear that at some point in time, and I haven't written it because it's a story that lives exactly in the moment that it wants to live in, exactly in the period that it wants to live in. The idea of what happens to Izzy, does she move to the Lower East Side? Does she change Sam? Does he change her? Does this marriage work? I mean, ultimately, this is a film about people being true to themselves and a Bubby understanding that this is someone who this is the monkey who will climb the tree. He'll make a fool of himself. He's the true love. So it's not a sequel I intend to write, but I can dream a little bit about the good stuff. And I kind of did marry the pickle man,
I mean, I didn't want to go there, but okay. As long as you opened up that vat of pickles, we might as well.
I did marry the pickle man.
I love the pickle man.
We both love the pickle. We're talking about you want to? Is he there?
Yeah. No,
is he there?
He's not here, but my darling Hugh, who we
love. Yeah,
yes.
Who's one of the sweetest human beings you'll ever meet, and a killer blues harmonica player.
This is true.
No, cool.
So, Susan, you're still teaching at NYU.
Mm-hmm. Before we go to that,
sure.
I would just love to share with your audience the trailer for Julia Scotti, Funny That Way.
How did we miss that?
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm going to leave the room for this. So can I leave the room for this?
Goodbye.
By the way, we should tell people that we are screening the movie in theaters.
Yes,
we're doing a live.
This is wonderful. Yeah, ever since COVID said I'm gone and people can come back to theaters, movie theaters really love the idea of special event screening. So we have been on a national tour with Julia Scotti, Funny That Way, where we screen the film, and then the excitement of Miss Julia Scotti appearing to do comedy, talk about the film. Sometimes I'm there to do a Q&A with Julia, wonderful journalist. And we've been to Austin. We've been to Atlantic Highlands. I think that's where we opened. In New York at Stand Up New York, which was incredible sold out.
We have one
event.
coming up at the end of the month too.
We have one coming up. We're going to be at the Teaneck International Film Festival.
There you go.
New Jersey.
In November. Yeah.
Okay.
So these are all special screenings where audiences get to meet Julia first in the film and then live and see her comedy.
So if you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to go leave the room now. No, I'm not. But we're going to roll the clip, and you can get some sense of just how. Well,
yeah, and the film you can watch it on Amazon Prime and Apple TV, and also Good Docs, which is our educational distributor. If you want to book it for your schools, where you can also get Miss Julia Scotti or me to come and talk about the film.
So roll it, Jimmy. Sorry.
Just speak into your remote control and say Julia Scotti, Funny That Way.
That's right, and I will appear like a genie, like a fat little old genie. Yeah.
And I'm like, get that fat old genie off my. No.
All right, you ready, Jimmy? Let it roll. Here's the clip.
Whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, you're human. And you're funny.
Thank you.
And you're brave.
All right, well, at least now they know I'm not full of crap.
Have you always wanted to be a comedian?
Yeah, it was the result of a severe blow to the head as a child.
I was traveling all over the country. I was a headliner, living the dream. But something was gnawing at me. I thought maybe I was gay. I reached this point where I couldn't avoid my truth anymore.
So in case you didn't know it, I should tell you that I'm transgender.
That's not normal. Then the other side of me was going, that's normal for you. I married really, really young. It was doomed from the start. I was the dad, and I wanted to be the mom.
To me, it was an awful betrayal. Her kids immediately wanted no part of her.
I was devastated.
I made the decision to prioritize fitting in over my family. I still feel like a lot of guilt around the whole thing, so. You know, I tell people my dad's coming, and then an old woman walks into the room, and I'm like, hello, father, and it's very confusing.
You know, dear, I've had a good life. You take my seat on the lifeboat.
Obviously, sweetie, it's a yes.
The fact that you were here to see this amplified it like 1,000%.
You were like always this like sad sack, and I hate life. Now I think you're so much more fulfilled and so much more joyful.
I really gotta go.
You gotta be happy. It's about quality of life. That was emotional.
Yeah.
It's a good film.
Memories.
Yeah, I know. I see myself. It's funny. I told you this, Susan, too, and I see those clips of me, old me, when I was with the other tribe. I know that person, but I can't connect to that person. Isn't that weird? It's a weird feeling.
Mm-hmm. But
it's almost like your twin brother that died, or something. It's just weird.
Other selves that we've been. I think in some ways we all have that pieces of our history, when we look back at who we were at another time in another place.
But there was a theory being floated around for a while that trans people were actually a part of a twin, and early on in the pregnancy, the twin died, but the surviving twin absorbed whatever DNA, I guess, or whatever, and they carry those traits, and they think that may have something to do. I don't know if that's dispelled that theory, but I kind of like it. It's kind of a good, kind of neat to think that I might have been two people.
Julia,
well, definitely two people.
I'd love to know, from the screenings and encounters you've had with people who've seen the film, what are some of the most interesting or touching experiences you've had in conversations with people around it?
Generally, they fall into a couple of categories. There are the people who come up to me weeping and want to tell me how I hate to give myself that. I'm not saying these things, but they call the bravery and the courage and the thing and la. That's one category, and inevitably there's at least a few either parents of or related to trans folks they're going through it now, and I get the sense that it makes them feel a little bit better about what's going on, because let's face it, it's traumatic for a parent to suddenly hear that about their child. It's not bad, but I've met so many wonderful parents because of the film who love their kids. They just love them, and they fight like hell to make sure that they get protected in school, and they have a place to go to the bathroom if they want to, and that nobody gives those kids a hard time. It's really, then I start to tear up. And the third category, I guess, would be, well, there's four categories, but the third category are actually mostly teens that come, late teens that come to the movie and thank me for what I did 20 years ago, what I did on AGT. And it's a heavy, I don't want to be somebody's role model, but it just happens. And I'm honored for that. I am honored to be that. And then the last category are people who just, I suspect, want to tell me that I'm an abomination and don't, but keep their mouths shut and they leave peacefully, which is fine. I don't, everybody's entitled to an opinion, So that's kind of what I hear. And it's sort of universal.
Well, I think you are a gift to the world, my darling.
Well, there are a lot of people that feel away and want to return me to the store.
And I'm so happy to see you two working together. I'm so happy that this show is alive and kicking with all the energy of its mission of talking about history of comedy and the generations of comedy and all of the good stuff that you're going to bring. I know that you've been thinking about how you were going to collaborate, and that you've found this form, I think is thrilling. And,
well, we can thank Jim for that. He came to me and said, "Hey, how'd you like to do a podcast?" And Kath and I had been talking about it for a couple of years, and of course, neither one of us did anything about it, but here we are, and this is show number 3. So we've got
and your roots of the wonderful sketches that you were doing early on.
Oh, yeah, we were silly back in the
day. Your silly sketches.
With the parade and everything. Yeah, that was.
And I was coming out of your trunk at one point.
That's right. You can't. I wanted to do another parade with me in a horse and buggy, going through New Hope. She
wanted to. Well, only because it's very hard to procure a horse and buggy.
You didn't try. You didn't try at all.
Well, your chemistry is magic. Beautiful.
Susan, if people want to reach you, how can they reach you? Can they reach you?
Yeah, they can reach, first they can reach the film, Julia Scotti, at Julia Scotti Film. That's the website for the film. They can reach me through my agent, Susan Gurman Agency. They can find me on Twitter at Sandler New, and on Instagram at Sandler Company.
Sandler NEW, Sandler New?
Sandler New is Twitter at Sandler New, and Sandler Company on Instagram.
Okay. And if you haven't watched Crossing Delancey, please do, because you will never look at pickles the same.
I'm going to do one more little announcement for the film festival that I do at NYU, which is the Fusion Film Festival, where Julia's appeared recently, where we screened the film for what was our first. You appeared virtually. We did that. Remember that taping? But this is a festival that I teach at NYU in the film program, and I guide the Fusion Film Festival. So it is in the spring, but we have events all year long, and it's coming up with our first event coming up soon.
Susan, are you hopeful for our next generation of filmmakers?
Very hopeful. Very hopeful. They're full of a sense of kindness and community and positivity. And having come out of COVID, so many of these kids are just feeling really ready to merge and make good things happen together. So it's really thrilling.
Well, they've got great teachers at NYU. So,
and you really do a lot with the women, the ladies, in teaching film, and which is, thank you, because it's so important to further, our voices and, our messaging and our ideas. So thank you for that.
Paying it forward. She's paying it forward.
I know.
I got it. Yeah, I have to thank you too, because anytime I've come to you with an idea, a project, or something like that, you've always been really super supportive, like the play. I wrote a play, and and you were just there, and you helped. You said you would do anything to help get it up and running. So
that's where the fun is, right? I mean, it's absolutely. I mean, being in the writer's room of life. That's where we are.
Yeah.
So I thank you for being my friend. Thank you for everything you've done. And thank you for coming on, too.
Oh, this is such a joy. I love you both so much. And this is a very, very special club to be in, to be a Comedy Centric member. So
thank you.
We love you.
We love you, too.
Bye, honey.
Nice.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.